In 1945, along a remote mountain road connecting the ghost-hushed mining town of Real de Catorce to the tiny settlement of Estación Catorce, 3 entire families vanished without leaving a single footprint behind. The disappearances occurred within 6 weeks, always in the exact same 800-meter stretch of an abandoned wagon trail locals had avoided for decades. The first case involved the Mendoza family, traveling by mule cart. Neighbors found their cart overturned, their belongings scattered, and all 4 family members gone. No blood, no tracks, no struggle. A month later, the González family disappeared in the same place. Their mule was discovered alive, tied to a post, but the family of 5 seemed to have evaporated into thin air. The final case, the Herrera family, was the most disturbing. Searchers found the wagon perfectly intact, the lantern still burning, and the dinner pot warm, as if the family had stepped away for only seconds. Yet the desert dust was undisturbed. No prints leading away, no marks of dragging, nothing to indicate human movement. Locals called it El Camino Prohibido, the forbidden road. Travelers swore the air there felt thick, that sound died quickly, and that shadows moved without wind. This is the complete investigation into the cursed road that swallowed 3 families. The mountains surrounding Real de Catorce, in San Luis Potosí, hold centuries of stories. Silver miners who never returned from their tunnels, travelers who vanished along forgotten routes, and warnings whispered by the indigenous Huirarica people long before the mines were built. By 1945, the once thriving mining town had already begun to fade into silence. Only a few families and mule drivers remained, crossing the harsh desert tracks to reach the nearest railway station for supplies. One of these routes, an old wagon road carved before the revolution, had gained a reputation too consistent to ignore. The locals avoided it. Muleteers detoured several kilometers to bypass it, and elders insisted no one should be on that road after dusk. They called it El Camino que no perdona, the road that does not forgive. But in the spring and summer of that year, 3 families, each unaware of the other disappearances, chose that road anyway. None completed the journey. What makes these cases especially disturbing is not just the absence of bodies or evidence. It is the silence, the lack of tracks, the untouched dust, the objects left behind in perfect condition, and the eerie consistency across all 3 disappearances, as if something on that road erased the people, but left their world intact. Today, we will retrace the final steps of the Mendoza, González, and Herrera families, examining each clue, each testimony, and each strange phenomenon reported in that barren, haunting stretch of desert. Before we begin, please subscribe so you don't miss the next investigation. And tell me, from which city and country are you listening today? The Mendoza family, Father Ignacio, Mother Rosario, and their 2 children, ages 9 and 12, set out from Real de Catorce on April 3, 1945. Ignacio, a former miner, planned to trade woven blankets in Estación Catorce. It was a routine journey. They left early, with clear skies and dry desert air. By late afternoon, a shepherd named Eusebio Torres heard a mule braying frantically. When he approached, he found the Mendoza's wagon tipped on its side in the middle of El Camino Prohibido. The mule was tangled in its harness but unharmed. None of the family members were present. Eusebio scanned the ground. The desert dust was thin and powdery, perfect for capturing footprints, but there were none. No tracks leading away, no sign of struggle, no drag marks. Even the children's light steps would have been visible. The objects on the wagon were scattered, but not violently. A jug lay upright with the cork intact. Blankets were folded neatly. A bag of flour sat open but not spilled. It looked less like an accident and more like someone had lifted the family out of the world without disturbing their belongings. That evening, Eusebio summoned help. 15 men arrived with lanterns and rifles. They searched for hours, calling the family's names across the canyons. The only response was the echo of their own voices bouncing off the stone walls. One man noticed something else. The air felt unusually still. The wind that normally swept through the canyon was absent. The silence felt heavy, thick, as if the road itself were absorbing sound. The search extended into dawn. Nothing was found. The dust around the wagon remained pristine. One detail from Eusebio's testimony would become crucial later. He claimed he felt a pressure on his ears as he approached the overturned wagon, like the sensation one gets before a storm or inside a tunnel. But there were no storms in the desert that night, no tunnels beneath the road, no logical source. When the men returned to Real de Catorce with the news, the elders shook their heads. "That road is taken again," an old woman murmured. The first family was gone, but the road was not finished. The second disappearance occurred on May 21st, just 6 weeks later. The González family, Tomás and Magdalena, along with their 3 children, left Real de Catorce at dawn, planning to return to Tomás's mother in the valley. The road was the quickest route. Some villagers warned them, but Tomás, a rational man, dismissed the stories. He had grown up hearing legends of spirits, but he believed none. Near sunset, a railway worker traveling on horseback found the González mule tied neatly to a wooden post beside the same stretch where the Mendoza wagon had been found. The mule was calm, not distressed, grazing casually on sparse desert grass, but the family was not there. The worker dismounted and scanned the ground. Again, nothing. Not one footprint belonging to Tomás, Magdalena, or the children. No indication of where they had gone or how they'd left. Their bags were placed beside the road, not dropped, but arranged. A blanket lay folded with unusual precision. A tin cup sat upright as though carefully placed. The worker later said, "It looked like someone prepared the place for their return, but they never came back." When the search party arrived, they noticed something profoundly unsettling. The mule's hooves had left clear prints in the dust, but there were no human prints at all, even though humans must have tied the animal. This was physically impossible. Some men theorized that kidnappers had lifted the victims off the ground, carrying them away. But where were the kidnappers' prints? And why take entire families without a struggle? A missionary who joined the search noted something else. The temperature dropped sharply within that 800-meter stretch of road, even though it was early summer. He recorded, "It is as if the air is different here. Too dense, too cold, too silent. The world feels thinner." Despite days of searching, no trace was ever found. 2 families gone. Same stretch, same silence, same impossible lack of prints. The villagers began to avoid the road entirely, but in June, one more family would take it, and their disappearance would be the most chilling of all. The Herrera family vanished on June 30th, 1945. They were well known in the town. Severiano Herrera, his wife Isabella, and their teenage daughter Rosa. Severiano operated a small workshop repairing tools for miners. He was practical, grounded, not easily frightened. That morning they loaded their wagon with tools to be exchanged at the railway station. The weather was clear, the road dry. They were never seen again. Their wagon was discovered by a passing mule driver named Luis Barragan. What he found was disturbing even before he stepped off his mule. The wagon was perfectly intact. The mule was calm. The family's belongings were in place. A pot of stew over a small coal stove was still warm, and the lantern hanging from the wagon was still burning. It was as if the Herreras had stepped away only moments earlier, but no one was there. Luis called out their names. Silence. He examined the ground, and the desert dust was flawless. The wagon's wheels had left tracks, but no human footprints moved away from it. He ran back to Real de Catorce, returning with a dozen men. When they arrived, the conditions were identical. Food still warm, coal still glowing, lantern still lit, wagon untouched. Dust undisturbed. One of the searchers, Don Hilario, later testified, "I felt as if I had walked into a room where someone had just breathed out." The search lasted 5 days. Hunters explored every crevice, every ravine, every abandoned mine shaft. They found only one clue, a single hair ribbon belonging to Rosa, wedged into a cactus spine. But it had no dust on it, as though placed minutes earlier, not days. No bodies were ever recovered. 3 families erased. Same road, same pattern, same impossible silence. The region finally declared the route cursed. Long before 1945, the Virarica, Huichol people refused to walk that section of road. They said the land there was thin, that the world split in places where tragedies occurred repeatedly. When elders were consulted after the 3rd disappearance, they offered unsettling explanations. One elder, Takari, said, "That road is not a road anymore. It is a mouth." He claimed the land remembers suffering, and during the mining period, hundreds of workers had died in collapses, dynamite blasts, and dehydration. Their deaths were unmarked, unnamed, their bodies sometimes left where they fell. According to Takari, places of mass suffering become heavy with spirit weight. They pull, they repeat, they consume. He pointed to the silence described by searchers. When sound dies, something is feeding. Another elder said the road was taken by shadows after a violent conflict between miners and revolutionary fighters in 1910. Dozens died in that exact stretch. Locals had buried the bodies hastily in shallow sand. Perhaps the families crossed into a place where the world had grown hollow, where presence disappears but objects remain. The most chilling explanation came from Takari's granddaughter. The road takes families, not individuals, because families carry stories, and the road is hungry for stories. The regional authorities launched a formal investigation in late 1945. Officers analyzed the soil, searched abandoned tunnels, interviewed witnesses, and reviewed every possible criminal explanation. They found nothing. A geologist theorized that underground caverns might be collapsing, swallowing people whole. But no sinkholes or openings were present. The land was hard, dry, and stable. A criminologist proposed bandits, but bandits leave tracks. Bandits do not cook meals, leave wagons intact, or remove entire families silently. A priest suggested mass hysteria or folklore, but he himself felt faint on that road, saying, "The air pressed against my ears, and all warmth left my skin." After months of analysis, the authorities closed the investigation with no conclusions. The road was declared off-limits, and by 1923, it was abandoned altogether. Over the next decades, travelers occasionally reported strange sensations when passing near the area. Sudden chills, muffled sound, time feeling slower, lantern flames dimming. Silhouettes seen at twilight. Locals built a shrine at the start of the old road, placing candles for the lost families. The candles sometimes blew out even when there was no wind. The forbidden road of Real de Catorce remains one of the most haunting unsolved disappearance clusters in Latin American history. 3 families, not individuals, vanished in the same small stretch, leaving behind untouched belongings, warm meals, and silent wagons. No footprints, no struggle, no trace, only an oppressive stillness, a chilling quiet that swallowed sound itself. Whether these events were the work of bandits, natural forces, the trauma imprinted by decades of suffering in the mines, or something older and harder to explain, the truth remains buried beneath the desert dust. But the consistency of the disappearances, the impossibility of the conditions, and the eerie testimonies of those who came near the road point to a phenomenon far beyond the ordinary. Today, locals refuse to walk that path. They call it La Boca del Camino, the road's mouth, and they say the land still remembers those it took and waits for those who dare to cross it again. Thank you for listening to this investigation. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And tell me, from which city and country are you listening today?